Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. John Kelly, Profiler here, and welcome. Today's kind of really a special show. I'm having the honor of being on with Tony McGivern and Michael Duffy. And they're really two great supportive people to me and fans to the show. And I have to tell you that they're really true crime enthusiasts. This is kind of a separate kind of show. As you know, I usually, don't have, fans on or regular folks on. But these guys are really so concerned and so invested in true crime and, such caring and understanding people that I want to have them on. I think it's important to have them on. First, I want to introduce ladies first, Tony McGivern. And Tony is a marriage and family therapist. Tell me if I get anything wrong, Tony.
Okay.
Out in California.
That's correct.
Okay. And she works online. So, I mean, any of you that are interested in a really good therapist can try and have an interview, meet with Tony. And she works for a company called Rula, R-U-L-A, Rula Counseling. And if you find Rula Counseling, get in touch with them and tell them you want to talk to Tony McGivern.
Thank you, John.
Right, Tony? I got that right? Okay.
You got it correct. Thank you.
Got it correct. Then we have Michael Duffy. I got to tell you, Michael is a craftsman's craftsman. This is a pin here. Okay. He made in honor of Libby and Abby. Beautiful handmade pin. I mean, this is craftsmanship beyond reproach. Okay. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible. And I can't thank you enough, Mike. This is really something I show pretty much everybody that comes around. And to honor Libby and Abby that way, and to really honor us for the work that we put into it and the years we put into it, is truly, truly appreciated from my heart of hearts. I mean, this is really something to see. I wish you guys could see it up close and personal, but I mean, it is absolutely gorgeous. And Michael owns Foot Wedge. That's Foot Wedge Custom Pin. Foot Wedge Custom Pins. And, we'll have Michael's site up. We have a link to his site. And if you're interested in any kind of custom pin, he's the guy to talk to. And Mike, tell us a little bit about what you do and, how you do this. I mean,
so
make a decision.
First of all, John, I'm a big fan, and I used to love watching Dark Minds. We talked about that earlier. That was one of my favorite shows. And frankly, that show used to scare the absolute bejesus out of me sometimes. So big fan of that show, big fan of yours. So thank you for the introduction. The pen. Everybody asked me about the pens. They said, why Foot Wedge? Well, I'm a big fan of Curb Your Enthusiasm, and there was an episode about a spite store. Long story short, I used to golf with a guy that had foot wedges in his bag. If you're a golfer, you know what I mean. So the store was in honor of him. So, but yeah, they're all handcrafted pens, and I specialized in historical woods, witness tree woods from Civil War or battleships, or really what I'm known for is I have a side business with Barry Spector, who is a Houdini fanatic. And he sends me wood from Harry Houdini's house out in Harlem, and I make pens based off, or actually, the pens are from Harry Houdini's house. So,
yeah, that's absolutely incredible. And I mean, the workmanship here is absolutely incredible. I mean,
thank you.
It's honest. I never dreamed. I'm so thankful to you again for this. It's really,
you're welcome.
Really, really impressive. And Yeah, I tried to golf. We'll just set that straight real quick. Didn't work out too well. Guy told me I'm playing baseball too much, so I'm no good. I'm terrible. Never win again. No golfing. So I guess it's chasing serial killers is more my hobby, if you will, versus golf. But
Well,
nevertheless, gave it a
you're very
shot.
good at it.
Gave it a shot. But thanks.
You're very good at it.
We try. I have tremendous support. I have a great team behind me, and with me. I mean, we our hearts are all in the right place, and the detectives that I work with are super. I mean, they are second to none. They are absolutely great, and we mesh really well. And hopefully, we can help some more families. Now, I'm just so happy to see Delphi end. It's been a long run. It's been a long run. And I know we got into the case about a year and a half into it because I saw it immediately when it came across because we watch all these cases going on around the country. So I saw it and I thought to myself, well, they've got this guy on video. They've got his picture, his voice. They'll have him scooped up in 3 days. They don't need us or anything. And a year and a half later, we were contacted by a group out of Delphi, and that's how we ended up getting involved in the case. It was a surprise to me a year and a half later to hear that this guy was still on the loose.
Mhm.
And for me, that's frightening in a town of 3,000 people to have a serial killer. I call him a serial, right? And he's on the loose. At the very least, a very violent child killer. And I do believe he had a sexual motive. So anyway, but to hear he was still on the loose, these people from Delphi are calling us and everything. I mean, or a group centered around Delphi. I won't say they were all from Delphi. As you know, this case has expanded all the way to California, where Tony is, and over in Europe. We have people contacting us from Europe, Australia. I mean, all over. So, but anyway, Tony, let me get back to you. How did you get involved in this case? What are your feelings in this case now? I mean, it's like we've come to the end of the road here, Tell me what you see, how you feel.
I was like you, John. I got interested or read a story about it about a year and a half into it. I went online and I started off with the group, and of course, you don't know a lot at the beginning, but there's seasoned people there that that helps you because you have to separate fact from fiction, which is a really tough thing. Um, I was like you. I thought with all this video, pictures, and things, I was just shocked that it didn't get solved like quickly. I immediately just had just amazing feeling and respect for Becky Patty. She is such a gracious woman, godly Christian woman, and I have said in chats online and watched her get brutally attacked. They especially went after the timeline, like, well, you got to know this. And I'm just thinking, who are you to do that? This is not the time or place. Um, and as we said earlier, I was telling you that my dream was to go to Crime Con and meet the Patty family, particular Becky, because I just think so highly of her. It was such an honor.
You did it. You did it.
Yes. So now it's really hard to be on any of the groups because now they're going, all the crazies are coming out, and they want to defend this poor RA. I don't even want to say his name, the poor thing, but I'm excited. I'm waiting for the sentence.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question about it. And Becky went through all that with cancer, and she's
Yes.
a cancer survivor. And she went through this.
Yes.
And all this carrying on, this negative criticism and carrying on for her and the rest of the family and everything. After losing a beautiful grandchild like Libby, and
Absolutely.
Michael, what do you have to say?
Sure. So yeah, I remember when I first got my first iPhone back in 2017. That was one of the very first because I came over from BlackBerry. I got the very first Amber Alert was for the Delphi incident on
Wow,
the
wow.
13th. It was actually, I believe it was on the 13th, late afternoon. I got that, and I just remember seeing a lot of highway signs about bridge guy up on the subsequent weeks afterwards. Can you identify? And it had Libby and Abby's picture up there. So I remember that pretty vividly. And it made the Chicago news, which was kind of interesting because it was more towards Indianapolis. So it was kind of a big story up here. And that's how I really got into it. I've been to Delphi a few times. One in 2020 was this picture behind me. I took that picture of the bridge before they did any type of trail improvements. And then I went back in late 2021 for the dedication of the ball fields. I was one of the vendors there, and I got to meet the Patties as well and talk to them pretty extensively. So, yes, I agree with Tony. Mike and Becky are very honorable people, and I enjoyed talking to the very, very well, very accomplished folks in the media and how they presented the case. So.
Yeah, I mean, really gracious people.
Very.
The way they handled everything. I mean, I'll tell you, I don't know if I could ever handle anything like that. I guess you never know until you're tested, because as you guys know, closure is a big word. It's thrown around a lot. It's easily used. But the bottom line is really there's never any closure for the loved ones. I mean, they cope with it better over time, especially if they have other kids or grandchildren. But that hole in the heart that I believe Richard Allen created, he was found guilty, is perpetual, and that will stay with them forever. I mean, it's just, there'll always be that that will never completely heal. Never does. So there is really never closure. There's justice, and we can have closure with justice on the justice end of it, but on the feelings and the feelings of the heart for losing your loved one. I mean, yeah, no, that's certainly something that takes a while. No, but how do you guys feel about Libby? I mean, man, oh man, where I sit, Libby nailed this guy. And after you answer, I've got a little story to just a blurb to go along with that from my partner Frank Adamson, who was the chief of detectives, retired on the Green River case. But how do you feel about Libby? I mean, she's the one who caught this guy. Really, when you think about it, I mean, Libby really, God bless her. God bless her and Abby. I mean, from the grave, they got this guy. Go ahead.
Well,
Man.
I'll be curious to see the complete video when the gag order is released. I believe it's next month after the sentencings. I'll be curious to see that video in its entirety. But you're right, John. I mean, that was smart thinking on her part. Video recording him because if they didn't have that, that probably would still be unsolved. So it's very impressive.
Tony, what do you say?
John, we wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for Libby.
Right. There you go. Perfect point.
And recently, one of my theories is, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but the first picture of RA on the bridge, I think he saw that and he thought, oh my gosh, there's a picture of me. But at the beginning, I don't think he knew about that video. And I think he about messed his pants when he saw that. And then he had to really make sure that he got, placed down there watching the fish, which of course, So just get
in
me stuffed in.
February from 60 feet up.
I'll be interested to see what his wife thinks about that once that entire video is released. Is how she felt upon, because she had to know that this is very familiar looking person. It might even be Ricky, as they would call him. But I would imagine, you know, being married to him for so long, she had to say this could be him.
From what we've heard, she made a statement to him. You didn't tell me you were on the bridge that day or something.
Yeah, I don't know if she's. I haven't seen what
I
she
don't know how
said, but
true
yeah,
that is. I don't know how
yeah.
true it is, but that's what I've heard. And that was captured on the recording somewhere when he was being questioned by detectives. Now,
Mhm.
again, I don't know how important or perfect that is. Tony, talking again about Libby and everything in the phone, right? I mean,
Yes.
when you look at that, I mean, she had to be scared. She not only snaps the picture, it's got to be going through her mind. Did he see me snap it or not? Did he see me snap it or not? Obviously, no, because there's no way he would have left that phone there, right? There's no way he would have left that phone there. He would have destroyed that phone, threw it in the creek. He would have done something with it. So now she's got to try to manipulate, hide that phone, maybe record him a little more. I don't know. Like you said, we'll hear more after they give permission for everybody to start talking again and everything, get that gag order over with. But the bottom line is, this girl here, like you said, we wouldn't be sitting here looking at each other. Probably wouldn't have met. Absolutely, if it wasn't for this girl and how brave she was, and how Abby stood up side by side with her friend too. And I believe they did at the end. He was not getting the cooperation he wanted. I truly believe that at the end. Okay. And that's when he really, he really went off. But the very fact that she got that out there, that video out there, how many other young girls did that save? How many other young girls did that save? Because now nobody knows who he is looking at the video, but he knows who he is on the video, right? You better believe it. I believe I'm not going to be as nice as you. He shit his pants. Okay. I mean, I believe he shit his pants. And we even talked about it in some of the videos we did going back. You know who you are. We may not know who you are, but we know you know who you are. And these guys, the one thing we've learned over all these years is how they follow the news. These guys, one, because of their narcissism, they love to see themselves. Okay. And number two, because they want to keep up on the facts, they want to keep up on the reporting, they want to keep up on any information that's possibly out there. So that's why they're glued to the news wherever it may be, so they can stay, or hopefully they hope it will help them stay one step ahead of the cops. Okay. So he got to see himself a lot, okay, on YouTube. Guaranteed. And I don't know. He may have messed his pants, Tony, a number of times, and probably tried to figure out some way to keep his wife from seeing it, right?
Yeah.
But we know too that most of these killers' wives just don't want to believe it. Their psyche, I think, lots of times cannot accept that their husband is a serial killer or a child killer or a violent sexual killer or a violent sexual offender. They just can't. So they stay along for the ride until there's a conviction in court. And now we'll see what happens. What were you going to say, Mike?
And John, you mentioned serial with regard to Rick Allen. You honestly think he's a serial? Because to me, if if he just killed the girls, it's more of a spree. But I don't know if he's committed any other crimes. But it brings up another point. How could you graduate from nothing to kidnapping and murder all in one act? And on top of that, a very rare occurrence of an outdoor kidnapping by a stranger. The circumstances are astronomical as far as the odds on that type of crime, because usually those types of crime, murder, kidnapping, are done by someone you know or you're familiar with. To my knowledge, Rick Allen was not in any type of relationship or had known Abby and Libby, so it was a stranger on stranger crime, which it's a very rare. And then, again, being outside in a public place to kidnap them, it just was very, very rare.
Yeah, this was rare. And I'll go back to your initial question. Why do I think about him as a serial? As you know, it used to be a serial killer had to have 3 victims, okay, in order to be called a serial killer. Then the FBI lowered it to 2 victims with the cooling off period in between, where they would have some time in between. I looked at it and I just said to myself, this guy, to me, and it could be spree killer, serial killer, I mean, I see 2 little girls murdered right away. Now, does that mean he killed before? We have no evidence that he killed before. We have no evidence that he abused anybody before. Could he have abused people and gotten away with it and we don't know about it? Correct. Could he have killed people and we don't know about it? Could be. It's a possibility, okay? Because like you said, how does a guy go from 0 to 60 that quick? And how old was he? 46 at the time? 45, 46?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So how does somebody go from 0 to 60 like that, 0 to 100 like that, so quickly, right? Well, now I'm sure you guys have heard of the Long Island serial killer. We've got a guy that's like 68 or 69 years old who has been indicted for 6 murders of 6 prostitutes on Long Island, right? Now, keep in mind, too, that these guys usually start somewhere between 25 and 35 is the rule of thumb. Can be a little younger, can be a little old. Nah, usually not older than 35, right? So you say to yourself, well, how could Richard Allen do this and not have any, more bodies out there, which we don't know if he does or he doesn't. We truly don't know, okay? Hopefully he doesn't. But also, too, how could Rex Uerman, who was a architect and major businessman, had a major firm in New York, Times Square area of New York City. Okay. I mean, this guy was a pillar of the community in New York City, if you will. No arrests ever for any kind of violence, no arrests for any kind of, sexual acting out that we know of. Okay. But how could it be possible? How could it be possible? We don't see any early acting out with Richard Allen. We don't see any early acting out. Certainly no arrests on Rex Uerman or Richard Allen early on until they get charged with these murders. One for Richard Allen with 2, Rex Uerman with 6 so far. I think Rex Uerman probably, and he's definitely innocent until proven guilty. I mean, he's got to be found guilty in a court of law too, just like Richard Allen. But the bottom line is, how could he have all these, bodies out there and never, really, cross pathways with law enforcement or anything else. See, sometimes you don't have a legal history, but you have a, a family history in some, So I'm really looking at this whole thing with Richard Allen. It's hard for me to believe.
I just
this
know, John,
man-
when I was down there, I just know when I finally walked across the bridge before they fixed it, completely, I had my hands out trying to balance myself. And I know it's old hat now to be saying this, but I knew at that point he had to be local because it was very high and very intimidating. And then when you got to the end of the bridge, and you can see where the actual abduction point was at, and you see there's not one but two hills. One hill going to the private drive where the white van apparently drove by, which we didn't know about until the trial. And then there's a second hill that's much steeper that goes down to the river area that I don't know how they would have gotten down, because there's certain areas of that hill, that second hill, that you could navigate down a little easier, but it's a very steep hill. And I know that the phone was coming on and off with the headphone jack. I heard much later. All that stuff could have been damaged or either by the water or by the hills falling down. We don't know, but that's what I thought immediately when I heard that there was headphone jacks that were possibly plugged in, is because of the water damage or some sort of damage during a fall or something like that. That was because of those hills.
Now, John, and if you can hear
Tony,
me,
yes.
I find it real hard to believe this was his first rodeo.
Yeah.
I remember early on talking about this case, and everybody spent hours talking about the stuffs that he had stuffed in his clothing, his jacket and things. He went out there so prepared. Now, I want to tell you something interesting, what I feel about RA's wife. I'm going to step out on a limb here, but I believe this actually. I took pictures off of the Facebook, seeing them together, him wearing the clothes, the jacket and the things that he wore. Do you remember when Doug Carter looked out during a press conference and he said, if this is somebody you know, if this is somebody that you love, we will protect you. I got to tell you that I have a strong feeling that that could be true. I believe that maybe she has, because she would have to be saying and behaving the way she is, if she was even being protected. I hope so. I feel very strongly that that's a possibility.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've seen it over and over in the different cases we've worked in. For one reason or the other, a wife really stands in there pretty much until the end, until that verdict comes down. And, pretty much at that point in time, their loved one's off to prison for life. And they're on their own to figure out what they want to do with their life. And but usually they hang in there until pretty much till the end, when you look at this case in general, like you're bringing out some highlighted really good points about it, what else do you see?
That's a really good question, John. It really is a really good question.
The one thing that jumps out to me is this whole defensive strategy that went on in the trial. And I've worked for lawyers for a number of years, off and on. They would call me up to do an evaluation or to be an expert witness in one way or another. And the bottom line is I never ever came across, with the defense lawyers I worked with, and a lot of the work I did was focused on not murders, but focused on drug addiction. And I wanted to see rehabilitation versus incarceration for most, and tried to make that argument. But it wasn't really for murder cases. I think there was one murder case I worked on with a couple of attorneys, and this was again early on. But they would never bring out people's names. You see, this to me, I just can't excuse that. I mean, why you believe these guys are Odinists, right? And you believe Odinist did some kind of sacrificial rite here and killed both these girls, and you're putting their names out. These people, good, bad, or indifferent, who you think are Odinists, all right, I have to believe were looked at by the police. Real easy to clear somebody if you can't put them at the scene. How can you go any further if you can't put the person at the scene? Right? Richard Allen put himself right there at the scene.
Yeah.
So that I mean, that was the end of that. But when you get into this Odinist theory and these people that were supposedly Odinists, this, that, and everything else, okay, maybe they're not the greatest people. I don't know. I don't know them. But you know what? They have families, right? What about their kids? What about their wives? What about their kids going to school? Okay. Now, if he got found not guilty, people may have forgot about Richard Allen, but there's a lot of people that wouldn't forget about Odinist and sacrificial rites, because that's really a conspiracy theory that can really gain a lot of traction. You know what I mean? And folklore in an area, right? So, I have concerns about that, because now your kid is going to school, and the bottom line is he could have been the killer of Abby and Libby. Your father, the child's father, could have been the killer of Abby and Libby. So he goes to school with that hanging over his head. And they probably did up until this trial. And they were vindicated by Richard Allen being convicted. But just think about how that could really, mess up a child's mind, or, cause a lot of trauma to have your friends at school telling you your daddy's a child killer or something. So that's kind of upsetting. Was an upsetting piece for me, the way that card was played. I never saw anybody's names put out like that before. Maybe in Indiana it's done all the time, I don't know, but I've never seen that in Jersey. I mean, there's no which way or shape about it. I've never seen it. It's like they're just thrown out there. Do you guys have any feelings on that, the way the defense handled anything? Or
It reminded me, John, of when OJ's defense threw out the Colombian drug cartel or whatever with Nicole Simpson. Very well could have been true, but it just reminded me of another smokescreen of a potential avenue of how that murder went down. So that just reminded me of that.
Right.
John, can you hear me?
Sure.
What bothers me the most, not so much about the Odinist, but even when R.A. confessed and he said he got spooked, but that crime scene reeks of staging, time spent there. That's what bothers me. Mm-hmm. I think the Odinist, I just think it's just a staging thing, period.
Mm-hmm.
I don't buy whatsoever that he did. I think he was, realized what he had done. This is a first time offender, like we talked about earlier. And I think he was trying to hide them. And I don't think he was these branches or whatever he had on him. I don't think it had any meaning at all. I think he was trying to hide them. And I think maybe he saw something or said, I got to get the hell out of here before I get caught red-handed, and just gave up on the staging, or not staging, but the coverage of the girls. I think it's as simple as that.
What do you say, Tony?
Absolutely.
Every serial killer I've ever talked to, I've interviewed, I've always asked them, when did you get scared? And they'd stop and think for a minute. When they kill the person, the victim, and they realize and come down from the euphoria of chasing the fantasy, if you will, okay, that they have a dead person on their hands. They have a body that they have to get rid of, and they have to put miles between them and that body as fast as possible. Okay, and I totally agree with you, Michael. There's stark raving fear, and to get that right from the horse's mouth from these guys, because that's exactly what every single one of them told me. Okay. Now, once that they come down from that high, of sexual excitement, they're on their way, man. They got to get out of that place. They got to get out of there. And then they're in a panic. Who's going to show up? Who's going to see them? Hide the body as best they can. Get out of Dodge. And that's pretty much what I believe happened as well. I think he had to get out of there quick. As far as, a lot of people don't believe it's possible to abduct and control two girls at the same time by one person. Well, I have to tell you, we've had a lot of cases where one guy has been able to abduct and control a few, even more people.
Especially if the girls have not even seen a gun before. I mean, I've never had a gun pulled on me. I hope I never had a gun pulled on me. It would scare me to death if one was pulled on me in that situation.
Absolutely. And like Tony said, he came packed for business. Okay. He was all together. He was organized. He was dressed the way he wanted to be dressed. Very hard to identify. He had a gun on him, I believe. I believe he did have some kind of, they say sharp instrument. I think that's very
box cutter. Box cutter was surprising.
He's saying the box cutter. I'm still a little bit up in the air over that, because in a way you got to get in a little closer with a box cutter. This guy had a treasure trove of knives they found in his house. And, at a distance, a knife is a, clear, better weapon. You don't have to get in too close. But as I mentioned, I don't know if you guys caught it or not, he was AIT. He was Advanced Infantry Training in the National Guard. And I went through that like 100 years ago. And it hasn't really changed much as far as hand-to-hand combat goes. And I got to tell you that he would have learned how to use hand-to-hand combat, and he would have learned how to fight with a knife or a sharp instrument or whatever the heck you want to call it. But that's training he would have gone through in the National Guard's training I went through. I mean, I was the same AIT as he was, so only many years earlier. But I don't see how they would have changed that. I just don't see. He came organized and ready for business. And, you start trying to put the percentages together. Was he aware of them before? Did he stalk them somehow? I mean, what about the coincidence of him being at the bridge at the same time they were going to be there? I think Libby messaged some people that they were going there the next day. I mean, is that? I mean, did he have some way to kind of look at them? Was he some kind of voyeur on the internet, or how did this guy? And the other part of it is, I call serial addiction or serial murder an addiction. And I coined it as an addiction because, look, if you can't stop, doing drugs, you're addicted. If you can't stop killing people, you're addicted. Okay. I mean, what's to talk about, right?
Well, John, with his conviction, don't you think some local Indiana police departments have to be looking at Alan as potential suspect for their own solve?
I think they have to look at him wherever he has been.
Yeah.
All these years, wherever he's been, he's got to be looked at. Now, I'm talking about, serial murder is an addiction. I'm not even, going to really go anywhere else until they're done and do a thorough investigation. But they need to see everywhere he's been, okay, and have his picture out all over the place, okay, so people can take a look at him. How he looks losing weight, how he looks with weight. I mean, there should be different pictures of him out there. I really believe that there's more to this story. There's more to this story because even though I turned around and like I said, looking at sexual predators and calling them addicts and whatever, and they're addicted to sex. He admitted he's a sex addict. He admitted he's a sex addict. So knowing these guys the way I know them, where does he get his juice? Where is he getting his juice? I mean, these guys have to have a fix. They got to get a fix all the time. Is he getting it off online somewhere? They couldn't find a device that could show them anything. He got to be getting it somewhere. It's got to come from somewhere, someplace. There's no doubt in my mind. I really believe that. He was able to and smart enough to hide a lot. And then getting back to what Michael said about getting across that bridge, this guy's was pretty limber on his feet. I mean, this guy could move too.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, he's been across it before. That was one of my first impressions after I crossed it, is that this was my first time and I was nervous and trying to balance myself, even though the boards are a lot stronger than what they look on pictures. Even though they're soggy, they're still pretty hard if you really step on them. But yeah, he's been out there before. That was my first impression.
Tony.
Well, it's interesting. I have a lot of copies of pictures from Facebook, and I have a copy of the picture of him when he went by those two girls where it's the timestamp. He's passing girls, and like you were saying, he seemed to be heading somewhere with a purpose. Now, the $1 million question is, where is his 2017 phone?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, Tony, is that was the one phone during the trial that they couldn't find. And I'm like, that's awful convenient that he doesn't have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and stupid, right? Like stupid. Like, okay, I'll get rid of this. But see, this guy strikes me as kind of a hoarder in a way. But okay, I'm going to hoard these, but this one really has the information.
Exactly. Exactly.
Will be the wiser. I'm going to get rid of this one. Mr. Koberger's phone just happened to go off
at the right times.
At the right times.
Maybe that's what they were looking for in the Wabash River. That who knows, all that time wasted out there. So
yeah.
Well, see, the other thing too, don't forget Keegan Klein's facing a lot of time. So yeah. Keegan Klein knows he's facing a lot of time. He's scrambling. He's got to give them something to get out.
Yeah.
What could he give them? The hottest thing, the biggest whodunit in Indiana history. Yeah. Yep. Let me take a shot at it. What do I got to lose? Okay. Yeah, I know who killed the girls, and they threw the weapon down here in the river. That could be a possibility too, because those cops were down there because Keegan was talking a lot. Could Keegan and RA know each other? Very possibly.
Well, that mystery just deepened too, because where was he at the morning of? He was in Peru.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? Seeing his parents, right? So he said. Yeah, that's very interesting as well. I just wonder, and we'll find out if there was an accomplice, if he gave up the accomplice, would it help him in any way? I can't see how it would, but, and the other part of it too, and especially I'm glad you brought up about the bridge, Michael, how rickety, because I've never been up there, how rickety it is and, and scary, right? You were scared.
It is.
You were scared of it, right?
You're 70 feet up in the air.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're 70 feet up in
the air, right? I mean, you're toast. You're going off that. Okay. So Keegan Klein running across that bridge, I had a real hard time with that. Ron Logan running across that bridge, I had a real hard time with that. I had a real hard time with it. And not only me, our team.
Yeah.
I mean, you got an alcohol problem. You're trying to recover. You're, what is he, 79 or 77 years old? I mean, and you're going to try and,
not just the bridge too, but going down those hills. there's no way a 70-year-old man's going to do that. No way.
Perfect point. And keep control of two girls.
Yeah, and I think that there's video of him taking reporters and stuff on his property going down hills that are just as steep or whatnot. But I still think that that's the you're not actually portraying it rightly, because controlling two girls at the same time is the outlier there. You want to make sure that they're under control. And again, there's no way a 70-year-old man, I thought, could be able to do that.
See, I don't think the girls would be scared of somebody that old, and they figure, oh, let's just break and run. You know what I mean? Now, that's why we always believed he had a gun, because we think we could hear the click of the gun, and knives don't shoot bullets, right? So we believed for the abduction point of it, it had to be a gun. And these guys always say, look, I'm not going to hurt you. I promise I won't hurt you. That's all bullshit. Yeah. Yep. I just want to have a little fun, sex, something like that. I'll let you go. And if one of you run, I can't catch you. If both of you run, I can't catch you, but I'll catch one, and I will kill, your best friend, or I'll kill your friend. If one of you run, I'll kill the one that doesn't run, or the one I can catch. Okay. And after seeing him, because he was in good shape, he was walking all the time and everything. He was always on the trails. This guy was in really good shape. I mean, plus being in the Army, being a sergeant too in the National Guard, he would know how to march people too, keep a certain amount of control of people. He has the gun. That's an abduction. That's one guy abducting two people. When you start putting it all together, then he's so organized. It comes to the kill, he doesn't shoot them, because you'll hear the shots ring out through the valley, right? So and he's going to have at least two shots. Okay, somebody's going to come running. He's not too far away from some houses at this point as well. So he uses a sharp instrument, like a box cutter, like you're saying, or a knife of some sort. We'll still see with that. Probably it'll end up being the box cutter all the way. But I mean, I have to tell you that he was prepared. He came prepared, really organized, and it's hard for me to believe that he just didn't act it out. I mean, just didn't get lucky and come across two people that were going to off guard, and just happened to be there at the same time. Two girls that just happened to be there at the same time. He was there. And then there's also a resemblance of, I believe, Libby and his daughter, which is very interesting as well for me. Okay. Our team. So hopefully more will be revealed there. What do you think about I believe he's a fantasy killer. I believe that the way they were found was part of his fantasy too. I mean, I believe this, some people are saying, the redressing of Abby was an undoing and was showing some kind of remorse or guilt or something like that. But yet Libby's all cut up and clothes are ripped off her and everything else. I mean, I just don't see, an undoing here. I see Libby's clothes on Abby, as part of a fantasy to me. I mean, I think this guy at this particular on this particular attack and these murders I believe it was fantasy driven.
And I'm glad you brought that up, John, because that's where this case loses me, of why you have one victim naked and you have another one dressed in her clothes, all of which takes time to dress that person. What's going on there? And that's where I think some of your interactions with, I've mentioned before, being a fan of Dark Minds with 13 and some of these other guys you've talked to, what that scenario would present itself as far as why that was done.
Any guesses, Tony, on that?
Well, it's very interesting. I was reading a conversation about it because now this I will tell you, I communicated with Becky Patty and I asked her early on, did the girls cross the creek? And she told me they did. And the thing is, if they did, and then they get over there and the clothes are all wet, that might have been why the bigger clothes ended up, going on Abby. But this is just it. When you were saying earlier, I believe we really got to educate our kids. When a bad person comes up with a gun, you got to run. You dart back and forth. You may get shot in the foot. You might get shot in the shoulder, but you'll survive. But it's a lie. When nothing's going to happen to you, we gotta get that out some way somehow, John.
Yeah, absolutely. Never go to the second location. Get it on right then and there, or run right then and there, but do not go to the second location. Do not believe one word these guys say, because they're lying when their lips are moving. That's all they are liars and manipulators. And all they want to do is objectify you and do whatever they want to you. And then they don't want any witnesses that are going to appear in court and testify against them. So they will kill you. I mean, that's just the way this rolls, And usually some of them have found that out the hard way. They've been arrested for abuse of a child early on. And then what's happened is that, a witness shows up in court and testifies against them. They go away for a while. So then when they get out, they know one thing they don't want anymore is a witness showing up in court to testify against them. Because if that witness doesn't show up, they don't go to jail. It's that simple.
Excellent, John. And I hope what you just shared, it was so well put that it saves at least one person's life.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
We're going to have to break soon. Is there anything else you guys want to mention or bring up that you think's important?
Well, the one thing about Richard Allen I learned it was right before the trial, that he used to work at the Walmart near me in Bradley, Illinois. I thought that was interesting dynamic. I've never heard that before, and I actually talked to some people that worked underneath him. So nothing of note. Just I remember him briefly. So
yeah, we'll get back to you on that. We have some information. We'll get back to you on that. On somebody else that worked at that store with them. She has, and we'll send you over a link too, Tony, if you haven't seen it already. Yeah. But there's a girl that worked at, I'm pretty sure it's that Walmart. She did work at a Walmart with them, and she has something to say.
Yeah, he was transferred from a different one because of an issue.
That's it.
It was an Indiana Walmart. He was transferred to the Bradley Walmart in Illinois. He only worked here for a few months, but
this girl did a video, a little story of her interaction with Richard Allen, and I'll have it. We'll send it over to you if you haven't seen it. Very, very interesting, and if you want to really dive into the psych possibilities there, I think you'll find it pretty chilling after what you know now.
Yeah. John,
found out,
yeah. John, after what you were sharing a while ago, one of the things that was shocking for me at the very end, when Doug Carter said, "You're hiding in plain sight," and he was, and that how killers sometimes are within 2 to 4 miles, and he was 2 miles away. And I really felt at the beginning when I heard that, well, that they would have found him by now. So that was very shocking for me, to be honest, how accurate that was.
Yeah, it was very shocking for me too. We believed in the profile we put out there that he was local because he knew where to go, or he had traveled the trails quite a bit. So he's extremely familiar with the area. Yeah. But it was kind of surprising to me that he didn't have more of a record, if you will, or more history. But yet, being around as much as we've been around, I'm not completely shocked because I know a lot of these folks, and again, I'll talk about Rick Schuerman, going to be 68 or 69 years old, or he's up there, 60s, I'm sure. All these years he had to be out there, and I mean, he's no history of anything, so yeah, I mean, but how about working at CVS? Oh my God, I mean, and then you wonder what information he was able to glean on people from the records at CVS, right?
Yeah,
Seeing his wanted poster up every day.
every day.
He was at some place, a pool room, a bar, or something where he was.
Yeah, it's right
there.
behind
It
him.
was right behind him. Pretty incredible.
He might even got callous to the whole thing where it's so
Yeah.
around so much. He's just like, yeah, whatever.
And plus the narcissism starts to play in.
Yeah.
Oh, I got away with it. They don't know who I am. They have no idea who I am. Life goes on and just go about my business. But yet we didn't see any more abductions or assaults on younger girls since then in that particular area. And again, my question is, where was he getting his juice? Or was he that terrified that Libby had that information on her camera, took that video, and what else do they have on me that I don't know of that the cops are not putting out there, law enforcement's not putting out there? See, so he was maybe scared, kind of straight, if you will, after that little girl got him. I mean, God bless Libby and Abby. They really they got their man, I believe, and I believe they really stopped him from carrying out other possible murders, and certainly I think that we'd have more victims, more so than we know of now. I'm not saying there aren't more out there. Again, law enforcement's got to chase this guy down every place he was, everywhere, keep putting the word out there. And they did a great job on that. I mean, they did a great job getting a lot of tips, but more has to be done now to see where he's been, now that he's been convicted.
Yeah. And don't forget, there's two things missing from the crime scene, a sock and a shoe. The thing that bothers me the most right now is, would you rather act crazy, eat paper, run around naked, go to the sane asylum, or do you want to go out in the general public of prison? Is that a rhetorical question then?
Yeah. Yeah, because he's going to run into a lot of people that don't like him, and they're still going to probably keep him in protective custody. And
Yep.
I think protective custody is a lot different than the whole. And, there's kind of different phases, if you will, or levels of solitary confinement. And I know guys who were in solitary confinement and they didn't have a tablet or anything, or people to come up and every 15 or 20 minutes, companions or whatever they're called, to make sure that they weren't hurting themselves and they were okay, and seeing a psychologist on a daily or bi-weekly basis or what, or I mean, so I mean there's lots to that, and I think there was a lot of manipulation, as you are saying, with the the way of he started to act out at a certain point in prison. I mean, and obviously the jury believed he was manipulating too.
Yes.
We're going to have to break here, and I'm going to have to go. Any parting words before we leave?
I'd just like to say, God be with the families, Libby and Abby. May God help them to heal however that is possible. And I also want to say that I feel really badly for RA's daughter and wife. I feel very badly for them. So thank you for letting me share that.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, John.
You guys are so welcome. We are honored to have you on. And hopefully this won't be the last show. We'll have you on again, okay? Because you're really great true crime enthusiast and you really get after it. You just
you,
don't watch it on TV. You dive in. And we like that, okay? Because
It's
it
an honor to be here.
takes a village lots of times. God bless both of you. Thank you so much. God bless our audience. Remember, take care of yourselves out there. Stay on your toes. Sorry. We live in a very violent world. Most importantly, be well and God bless. And thank you all so much. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.